In today's video, we're going to take a look at a game that has been on my Steam wishlist for quite some time. It has a whole heap of positive reviews and is highly rated by other content creators.
I can't believe that this game is still in early access.
But not only that, the game has had regular updates, with the latest one dropping very soon. And would you believe it, the developers behind this title, Keen Games, reached out to me and asked, would I be interested in doing a video on their latest update? So of course, I said yes. And what is this mystery title, you might be wondering? Well, it is of course Enshrouded, a co-op survival action RPG for up to 16 players. Now, some things you should know before we get started. I have never played Enshrouded, so I'm going in blind here. But despite that, I'm a bit of a survivor connoisseur, and I do love a good challenge. So to make things that much more exciting, and obviously for your entertainment, I've set myself some rules.
What are the rules? What are the rules? What are the rules?
Rule number 1, no guides, no wikis, no asking for help. Rule number 2, play on the hardest difficulty, which in this case is survival mode. And rule number 3, the new update is called Wakeofwater, so therefore I must include some sort of water feature in my main base. And to do this, I'm going to need to discover the new water biome, which I have no clue where it is. And to make it that little bit more interesting, I'm going to set myself a time limit of 50 hours. So with the rules set, let's begin our journey. So like all good stories, let's start off with the character creator. I've said it once, I'll say it again, when I create my character, I try and find someone who visually represents me as a person. Ah, perfect. With the character creator done, all I needed to do now was choose the level of difficulty. When has a red skull meant anything bad? And as easy as that, I was ready to begin my journey. You know you've gone too hard the night before when you wake up in what could only be described as some sort of egg thingy.
I'm dying. Help me.
I decided not to stick around and try and find the exit because I figure anyone who could put you in a metal egg without your knowledge is probably someone you don't want to meet. I'm guessing I had some sort of like carbon monoxide poisoning because I could swear this fire was talking to me. Worried about the state of my lungs, I opted to go and get some fresh air. And oh my, what a view. I checked my map and there's a marker for my first base, so I figured I should head there. I picked up a few items on my way, including a torch, some bandages, and of course a mushroom to ensure I had all the vital supplies.
What's all that stuff you're grabbing?
Tools! Tools! Duct tape, zip ties, and gloves! I have to have my tools!
Speaking of which, I then entered the Enshrouded area. Essentially, this area is cursed with black mold, and if you stay in there too long inhaling the stuff, you will die. And just to add to the experience, there's also a bunch of creepy infected mushroom people. It must have been my lucky day because one of the first mushroom people I killed actually dropped a legendary sword. The combat was pretty straightforward, which was stab them with the pointy end. Luckily, being British, this comes naturally. I know someone from my Discord is probably going to point this out, so I'm going to say it first. Yes, this area does remind me of that time my car had the mold issue. And to anyone wondering, yes, I did get it cleaned up. I headed out of the cave, picked some berries, killed some wolves, and eventually arrived at my destination. This is where my home would be for the next 50 hours. I had another hallucination which told me there are other survivors that I need to go and rescue. The flame altar is the lifeblood of the game. You need to upgrade it to unlock other zones, and you could also upgrade it to give you a bigger area to build. There's also a very in-depth and comprehensive skill tree which allows you to focus on different types of builds. You could be a tank, you could be a healer, you could be an archer, you could play however you want to play, as cliche as that sounds. I decided to create a fire and then cook up the wolves that I murdered, as this would actually give me a health buff. Also, with the difficulty set to the hardest, I would actually have to constantly eat and drink, otherwise I would die of starvation and thirst. And everyone knows fashion is endgame, so I crafted myself a shirt. I was now well equipped to continue on my journey. First stop was the local village, which was just a stone throw away. I went in there with the aim to clear it out and maybe find some goodies. But what I actually found was a deranged mushroom person chasing a rat. Little did I know, I was about to get my first taste as to how difficult this run would be.
Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere.
I'm not.
Don't go anywhere.
I'm not. I'm sitting on my
Don't
back.
go anywhere. Are you fucking blind? You can't see me.
Yep, that's right, 20 minutes into the game and I had already died. This also meant I dropped everything I had on my person.
I've got nothing left.
So, yeah, I had to run in, get my items back, and then try and defeat the Mushroom Man once again. Luckily, his health hadn't regenerated, so I figured I could probably just kill him with a sneak. Fun fact, I was originally going to do a run of this game with no weapons, and I'm pretty glad I decided against that. I then spent the next half hour or so building up my homestead. And if I do say so myself, by the end of it all, it was starting to take shape. Although, unfortunately, some would argue I was struggling with the most important component, which was the roof. So I decided to give up and come back to it later and continue with what I was actually meant to be doing, which was saving the first survivor. I was now an hour into the game and I was ready to go save a survivor. From what I can tell, they were located inside this temple. And you might be wondering, how did I get here? Well, that involved running across the Enshrouded area whilst crying like a little girl, because quite frankly, this place is horrifying, especially when you play alone in the dark at night. More on that later. I tried to do the Skyrim approach of being a stealth archer, but quite frankly, it didn't work. So I went all out brute force. Maybe it's just me, but I felt like the combat reminded me a bit of Elden Ring. However, it was a lot more forgiving. I opted for sword and shield so I could parry attacks and basically not die so quickly, and it seemed to be working out. Upon entering the temple, I was met by two brutish looking men who did their best to make me feel welcome in this temple of rubble. Being the low level peon that I am, I didn't have too many fancy skills I could put off other than maybe walk around the back of them and stab them with a pointy end. Believe me, combat gets a lot more complicated as you level up. Sometimes a good tactical retreat and spamming potions is all you need to win the day. It turns out the survivor I'd come to rescue was also trapped inside a metal egg. I'm guessing we drank from the same punch bowl. I used fast travel to teleport back home, and then I started to get acquainted with Oswald. Apparently he decided that he was going to live here and that he needed a bed. He could probably tell I lived on a bad neighbourhood. I would, however, allow him to live here because he did actually have a use. He had a bunch of items that I could craft and only through him. So I figured with someone actually living inside my house now, perhaps I should finish the roof off. And just like that, this crack house was now a crack home. Yes, there's a skill tree, yes, there's a ember flame you need to level up, but the real progression here was the fact that now I had a habitable house. Of course, all this coziness needed to come to an end, and that came in the form of having to go to the Enshrouded area and seek out the Elixir Well. It wasn't long before I came across a decrepit looking structure which was filled full of mushroom people, and they didn't seem very pleased to see me. Naturally, a fight broke out, and of course, I won. It wasn't too long before more showed up, and then I started to realise that there was quite a lot of enemies here, probably more than I was willing to take on. I did find these little lamps which, when taken, will boost your Enshrouded time, so that was a bit of a relief. Sadly though, I ran into someone who's a bit more formidable than I first gave credit to, and a lapse in my judgment caused me to die. And here's where the real ball ache begins. Number 1, I spawned all the way back at my base, and number 2, I had no weapons. So I had to do a corpse run, grab my weapons, and then act like a sheep and get the flock out of there. Apparently this was enough to wake up every single mushroom head who decided to then try and attack me. I did manage to get out, but all in all, that was quite a scary experience, and worse still, I would need to go back and do it all over again. I figured if I was to go back, I'd probably need better gear, so began my journey to improve my homestead. But even that had its dangers, like dying of starvation.
Nice!
The plan was simple: unlock new recipes, craft new armor and weapons, explore above ground and try and search out new recipes and items, all in order to be able to go back to the Elixir Well and defeat those stupid mushrooms. A flawless plan, if I do say so myself. It was whilst exploring that I discovered something truly remarkable. It seemed as though I'd stumbled on some clear, translucent liquid which could only be described as water. Had I discovered the water biome so early into my playthrough? No, it was just a pond, but still, I was getting closer, right? Anyway, I didn't have time to gallivant around this pond. I had work to do. I had mushroom people to kill. In my damp clothes and slightly improved armor, I headed back to the Shroud. Whilst there, I did manage to gain a whole extra level. That's right, I was the mighty rank of 3. I had a brain fart and decided to place a flame altar just behind the Elixir Well. That way I could fast travel in without having to go through the mushroom people. To feeling fully prepared, I headed into the deep unknown. I had no idea what awaited me in this hellhole. It took what felt like an age to get all the way down the well, and I was a bit cautious about how much time I'd actually have in the Enshrouded area because, quite frankly, I didn't want to die down here. And there it was, a red mushroom blob thing, which was of course guarded by a fell thunderbrute, which is commonly known as in the gaming industry as a ruddy big guy with a ruddy big sword, which he was not afraid to use. To my surprise, I did a nice chunk of damage to him. So in theory, all I needed to do was not get hit and I might have a chance of winning. But luckily, I'm somewhat of a Elden Ring veteran, so a mere brute like this was no match for me. And in what was quite a surprising and easy victory, I had won the day. And to the victor, the spoils of war, including a big severed head. All that was left to do now was cut down the big red glowy mushroom thingy, and just like that, the Enshrouded area was now cleansed. I'd saved the day, pretty much job done, nothing left to do. Okay, so it turns out there's actually quite a lot to do, and I'd probably only uncovered about 2% of the map. And that wouldn't be the last of the Elixir Wells, because there were still 12 more to shut down. There were also these lookout towers, which inside contain traps and jump puzzles. And once you reached the top, the view was pretty spectacular. Oh, and they also served as a fast travel point. And how does one get down from such a high point, you might be wondering? Well, you jump, of course. And you deploy your newly created glider, which allows you to temporarily fly around the map. I also tried out some different weapons that I'd acquired. For instance, this fire staff was pretty beastie. But unfortunately, it just wasn't my style. I'm more of a brute force fighter than a wizard, I guess. But variety is the spice of life, so I did give two-hand weapons a try, and they were quite fun, just a bit too slow for my liking. I feel like you need an IQ of 40 to be a two-handed weapon enjoyer, just my personal take. So I reverted back to the much superior sword and board. I did manage to free another survivor, meet Balthasar, a alchemist. And you know what that meant? A new housemate for Oswald. Don't they look so happy together? I was starting to acquire a backlog of quests which required me to gather up survivors. I didn't realise I was running a hotel, but hey ho, the more the merrier. And I'd also become somewhat of a fashion icon. I know nobody asked, but I felt like it was worth mentioning. I'd also started upgrading my weapons and even putting in more skill points in the skill tree. But every so often, the game would remind you why you can't relax, why you must constantly be afraid of the fog, and why gliders aren't a common form of transport. And sometimes it'll be the simplest thing coming out of nowhere and give me a fright. But overall, I was having a good time. I was enjoying myself. Well, up until the 8th hour. What should have been a straightforward quest soon turned into a living nightmare. The quest was simple: save the carpenter. Just one slight caveat: he's in this big doomy gloomy looking tower which is covered in shroud. To begin with, it was going quite well. I was doing damage to enemies, they were dying. What could go wrong? Well, being greatly outnumbered would probably be a negative, and also having a lack of stamina was also quite alarming. But I tactically ducked in and ducked out of combat and eventually slayed the mushroom heads. Pretty straightforward when I just took a moment to think about what I was doing. With the path cleared, I then entered the tower, not knowing exactly what to expect. It was dark, I couldn't see much, but I could tell there was a bit of a steep decline. And then, as if I had just sprayed some raid in Asmongold's house, I was overwhelmed by roaches.
Oh shit! He's on my belly. Look at him. Get him on me. Oh god.
But it gets worse. I respawned just outside and thought, well, I'll just run in, grab my stuff, and heal up and try again. A solid plan, except my stuff was at the bottom of the roach infestation. I know, maybe I'll try again. Apparently, I had forgotten about one of the mushroom heads who decided to pelt me with arrows. And whilst the bugs were seemingly distracted, I jumped down.
No, 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 no. Wait.
And somehow, through some miracle and quickly using a potion, I managed to escape. And oh, if only the story ended there. After a quick refill of my resources and repair my items, I returned to the tower. Except this time, things didn't go quite as smooth as they did the last attempt. In fact, they went a lot worse. At some point during the fighting, I got triple teamed and once again died and lost all my gear. Up next was the most frustrating hour of my life.
Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out! Here's the cover!
What do you mean? What do you mean?
You got me.
I did eventually recover my stuff, but God, they did not make it easy. And worse still, I hadn't even found the carpenter yet, who was still in the tower and protected by something that was worse than roaches, and that was of course banshees, who turned out to be quite killable. But then it happened again. I entered a room which had 2 banshees inside, but also the carpenter, so I just went straight for the carpenter to release them and tried to make a hasty exit. Unfortunately, the only way out was through the door that the banshee was stood in front of, which I managed to get through, but I didn't account for one small little detail. Gravity. It gets the better of all of us. And to add insult to injury, they actually put my stuff at the very tip of the jump, which meant I had to run through the banshees again with no gear, no health, and yeah, it did not go well. I felt like I'd grown as a player since my last 10 deaths though, so I took my time, I was patient, I was persistent, and eventually I was rewarded for not going in full force. And just like that, 2 hours of my life I would never get back, but it didn't matter because I had rescued the carpenter. On my way out, I could feel an evil presence follow me. And just for good measure, I stuck a load of arrows in that bitch banshee's head. After 15 hours, I made a huge discovery. And that was, of course, fishing, a new feature that's been added to Enshrouded, along with the water biome, but who cares about that? We have fishing. Ignore the boot, I did catch some other stuff which was actually worthwhile. I really enjoyed the fishing, I found it quite cozy, and it almost made me want to move my whole entire base next to this pond so I could create a dock just so I can fish off it. But unfortunately, in those 15 hours, I'd put quite a lot of work into my main base. I had built a new goat pen for my pet goat. His name was Gruffy the Mushroom Slayer. I had replaced the wood floor with a stone floor simply because it seemed like too much of a fire hazard to have an open flame next to so much wood. And with an influx of survivors, I decided it was time I expanded the homestead, so I built a new extension. And dare I say it, it almost looked good. Even the outside of the house was starting to look presentable. Another feature I did enjoy was the magical chests. Essentially, any items in these chests can be accessed at any time on any workstation. Think of it as a more streamlined way of crafting without you having to go and grab the materials every time. I'd also started growing my own food, and at risk of sounding like a complete idiot, I found out you could sleep through the night. All this time I just played through it, not realizing that yes, you can skip past.
You serious?
And when I wasn't busy making a home, I was out there defeating world bosses and slowly leveling up my character. And what was an actual surprise was that I wasn't dying 20 times over when trying to defeat a boss. I was also exploring more and found another lookout tower, which, as you guessed, came complete with a whole bunch of traps I had to get around. But that's okay, the view was more than worth the time and struggle. There was just one slight issue, which was I still hadn't found the water biome. Like, I didn't even know if there's a Wikipedia page for the water biome. I just couldn't find it. It did not exist. As you can see, 20 hours in and I'm thriving. So here's a quick status update. I was slowly discovering more of the map and completing the elixir wells. I had unlocked a couple more combat skills, making the overall gameplay a lot more interesting. But most importantly, I had completed the fashion game. I now look like RoboCop.
Come quietly or there will be trouble.
I also had some pretty decent gear. Leveling up was slow, but I was leaning more towards a tankish sort of dexterity build. Yes, that's a thing. And as for the house, it had all the charm of a backpacker hostel in Australia. In other words, it was overcrowded with people I didn't like. I had been kidding with the red gooey mushroom thing, and even discovered some new creatures. And in typical British fashion, when you find a new species of animal, you kill it, stuff it, and stick it on a mantelpiece. And at one point, I thought I might have found the water biome. But unfortunately for me, it turned out to be another pond. A nice pond, just not the pond I wanted. The search continues. So there's this strange gameplay loop that tends to happen in RPGs, which is when you complete one quest, you are given a new quest directly afterwards. And eventually, I was rewarded with a quest which would take me to a brand new biome. And I couldn't believe my eyes. When I got there, it looked like there was a lake in front of me. Was this an illusion? And as I got closer, this texture looked less like water and more like shit. It was a giant pool of shit. Don't get me wrong, I was happy to see a new biome. It just wasn't the biome I wanted. There was lots to do. There was a tree I had to climb. There was puzzles I had to solve. And okay, it wasn't excrement, it was a muddy bog, but do you know what it wasn't? It wasn't water, okay? It wasn't water. I've been playing for quite a while now, and I still haven't found it. So, the search, once again, continued. Despite the setback in the lack of water, I carried on questing, and I was now at level 14 and being sent to a castle. The only problem was the front gate was locked, so I had to use my ingenuity to get in. That's right, through the magic of flying, I basically jumped over the wall. Once again, I was met with a spectacular view and only one real option, which was to jump into the courtyard. And would you believe it, as soon as I landed, there was a big lizard creature for me to kill. He wasn't happy to see me, probably because I was stabbing him in the face with a sword. And he really didn't appreciate me shooting him in the face either. I wouldn't say it was the hardest boss I'd fought so far, but they certainly gave me a run for my money. But once again, I managed to vanquish a beast and take their head as a trophy. Just another day in the office. Whilst poking around the castle, I did manage to find a new costume, so naturally I upgraded my fashion game.
Oh yes, very, very nice.
I then went about upgrading the flame altar with the new head that I acquired, and guess what? It then demanded another upgrade. It seemed like an endless cycle of just taking and not giving, and it was a very toxic relationship I had with this flame. I also couldn't go any further north in the map, so I guess it was time to go out east, which I instantly regretted because it shoved me in some dark, dank underground cavern with no way to get out. I hated it here.
I'm scared to death. I'm frightened and I don't know what to do. I'm confused and I want to go home.
But through trial and error, I eventually made it out, and I was met with a desert, which is the furthest away you could get from a water biome. However, I did find a little oasis, which was pleasant. I then had a 200 IQ moment where I figured, what if I flood this biome so it is the water biome? Unfortunately, I don't think this pool of water was quite big enough. I was clearly getting desperate at this point. I was quickly running out of time. Don't get me wrong, it's great the game has this much content that after 40 hours I'd only scratched the surface, but I had a goal, an objective to achieve, and I was desperate. So I decided to see if I could climb the highest mountain and just look out into the wilderness and see if I could find the water biome. And to do this, I used my pickaxe and double jump. And I think that's what I love about this game so much. Yes, it's an open world environment which tries to restrict you, but if you get inside the mind of a rat, think like a rat, you can escape the maze. You just have to believe. And eventually, I was rewarded. I give you the water biome.
Right, yeah, of course.
But I had to be sure, so I set up a base camp and I flew on down into this illustrious tropical environment. I didn't want to be fooled like last time and tricked with mud instead of water. I couldn't go through that pain again. And as I got closer, I had the biggest confirmation possible that this was indeed water.
Here I come. Oh, here I come. Oh.
It was literally called a lake. There's waterfalls, and I could see water everywhere. I returned in the daytime, and it was 10 times more spectacular. I could literally see the forbidden shroud area, which I was supposed to unlock to get here, but obviously I cheated the system. and it did make me question what you have to unlock to get to the big floaty castle in the background. The new biome had a whole heap of new materials and enemies to discover, and be warned, they were level 37, which, if you're wondering how I'm doing so much damage to this thing, I have a slight confession to make. I turned down the game difficulty. There was no way I was going to get to the water biome and then not be able to explore it or have to creep around everything. I knew what had to be done, and I'm sorry, and I failed. However, I did find the water biome, which kind of cancels the bad thing out. And I haven't used the wiki whatsoever, so overall, I would say I was winning. I'm just sorry to anyone who feels like I let them down. I can, however, assure you I have played 50 hours. That part is very much true. If it's any consolation, I died quite a few times when trying to do the lookout tower because the traps were one hit, one kill. So, I was punished in other ways. And by gathering some materials in the water biome, it actually unlocked some tools which I could use to improve my main base with some water features, which, let's be honest, that's the main reason that we're here. Unfortunately, I don't have much time left to make a water feature in my house. Now, I know how passionate the Enshrouded community is when it comes to building their bases, so I apologize in advance as to what you're going to see, but remember, it's my first time. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you my water feature. Well, I did say earlier it reminded me of an Australian hostel, and what Australian hostel doesn't come complete with an outdoor pool? But how did I do this, you might be wondering? Well, the new biome does allow you to unlock a tool called the water pump, which allows you to put water anywhere you want and also extract water from different water sources, including the experimental pond that you made because you didn't know what you were doing. Don't get me wrong, I've done the most basic thing for my house. There was a lot more complex stuff I could have done. For instance, you can craft these things called water dispensers, which quite literally dispense water, and the more dispensers, the more water comes out. The physics behind it was actually really impressive, you could fill up holes and all sorts of stuff. But what's more fun than a water dispenser, you might be wondering? How about a good drainage system? So if you put enough drainage down, it will stop the water from going in places where it really shouldn't. So obviously great if you're trying to build a canal somewhere and you don't want the water to overflow. Or maybe you want to build an infinity pool and have the water flow in a particular way. And then I just got this brain fart that I just really couldn't get rid of. And it was like, what if we put a drain in the pond? Yep, that's right, a drain in the pond. What an absolute mad lad. Look at this, it's like a little whirlpool. And then I got thinking, more drains. But it wasn't enough drains, I wanted more. I wanted to see if we could drain the pond. And guess what? You bloody well can. I'm not sure if this is what they quite meant when they said, could I show off the new water features? But here you are. And then I just got another, I had to scratch an itch in my brain, which was, can we fill the pond back up? Simple answer, yes. Yes, you can. And honestly, this is the best building mechanic I have seen in any survival game. The building itself has always been very impressive, but to add a water physics mechanic which you can control in your own home, truly blown away. And I honestly look forward to see what sort of contraptions people will come up with. I mean, this is just scratching the surface. There's a water wheel that you can use. There's even doors that you can have open to stop the water flowing in. Honestly, I'm super impressed by this. But unfortunately, I'm too dumb to come up with anything clever to put in my own house, so I made a basic pool. And on that bombshell, I'm going to end the video there. Honestly, it's been one of the most enjoyable 50 hours I've put into any early access game, and that's stupid to say that it's early access. This has more content than some games that are fully released. And the great thing is, they just keep adding to it, all for free. So if you do want to check out Enshrouded, I'll have a link in the description below and also in the comments section. And the actual release of Wake of Water is November 10th, so make sure you do go check it out. Anyway, thanks for watching, leave a like, sub for more, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye bye for now.